Hello, and welcome to a slightly late recording of PauseCast. It is Saturday, the 6th of January 2018. I am Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Henner, I use he, him. Welcome.
Hey, Mark.
Hey.
How have your holidays been?
Nice and quiet. I've been at the beach for, I didn't even know how long now, because I lose track of the days up here. But, no, it's been good. I've read a bunch of books and stuff. How about you?
Yeah, I had a pretty quiet holiday season. Maybe a few unexpected things here and there. Some nice gifts. Just a nice quiet Christmas. It was nice.
Nice.
Yeah. I played a lot of video games.
Yeah?
Over the past couple of weeks. I'm kind of excited to talk to you about a couple.
Yeah, tell me about it. What have you played?
So over the past couple of weeks, I have finished 2 games in 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. The first game that I finished was Torchlight II.
Cool.
I finally got around to finishing that. That game is really interesting. It has a really complicated end game, it looks like, too.
I think games like that often do try to sort of explode out a bit or change the way they work in the end game, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, like, something that's got me thinking is, like, Destiny 2 also, Destiny 2 very much also has that.
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of, like, repeated content and stuff like that, because it's that kind of game.
Yeah.
You go into Destiny knowing that, or if you have experience with the genre, I guess, you go into Destiny knowing that this game's going to have a big old end game.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Destiny's player base has been kind of frustrated with the end game. I can't say that I share the same concerns that they do, but, like, there's been a lot of concern about that. So, like, playing another game with an extensive end game like Torchlight has shown me, like, oh, hey, so this is how they do this thing, and that's how they make this part of the end game really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, a frequent complaint of Destiny players is that something added in the latest expansion called the Infinite Forest isn't quite expansive enough.
Is that an area?
Yeah, it's an area. The idea behind it was essentially it's a bunch of puzzle pieces that bring you along a certain path.
Okay.
It's like
a tile set?
Like a tile set that has different enemies and different pieces of the world all attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when this was announced, there was this idea that it was going to be more expansive than it actually ended up being. And it's become a source of frustration for Destiny players.
So is that, like, they'll recognize bits and pieces fairly frequently?
Yeah, it's very frequent. Like, it's a very limited tile set.
Okay.
You can only access it under certain conditions. Like, you can't just run it forever, and it's only for, like, 5-10 minutes kind of situation.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it didn't really do what people wanted for the end game.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to Torchlight 2, I've noticed that the design decision they made there for their end game was they've got their own infinite forest of sorts. Something called the Mapworks.
Okay.
And the Mapworks sells maps, and each map can be put onto a shrine, and it opens a portal to a dungeon.
Actually, I think I recall something similar from Torchlight 1, where you could find some item, maybe it was a map, that would send you to just, like, a small or smaller isolated dungeon from a different tile set to the one you were on. Because in the original Torchlight, you were going down through levels, and each level would have, like, a different tile set.
Yeah, there were the, like, phase portals. I remember those as well.
Is that what they were? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like, there was an enemy in the world that you would kill, and it would open up the phase portal.
Right, okay.
That's in Torchlight 2 as well.
Okay.
But the Mapworks also, each map has modifiers on them. So, like, you can get a dungeon that's like, hey, you'll get 15% more gold in this dungeon, but enemies will deal 5% more damage.
Right.
Something like that. Like, there's a sequence of modifiers, like fire damage is boosted up to 15%. And it kind of creates an infinite forest of its own and an infinite end game. There's probably always going to be something interesting that you can find there. And there are dungeons that go up to 5 levels past the level cap for people who are really looking for challenges.
So just the monsters are stronger than you can hope to get, sort of?
Yeah.
Okay. This is reminding me of the similar-ish things done in Diablo 3, which is the only similar game I've really played extensively, where they've got a lot of high difficulties to pick from. So if you're finding it's easy, you just up the difficulty and you'll get better drops, but enemies are stronger.
Yeah, this offers a little bit more control over that stuff in a way that I really appreciate, I think.
Yeah, this sounds like it's a lot more granular than the way Diablo 3 does it, which is just, hey, enemies are stronger and you get more stuff, and it's not at all granular, really.
Because that's all the like torment rifts and stuff like that, right?
It's the torment
and
levels,
now they've just added the challenge rifts.
They've been in...
as well.
Oh, actually, no, sorry, they're different. Yeah, I haven't actually done any of those. They're the ones where it's like a preset build that you have to use.
Oh, okay.
I think. I haven't done them, so I might be wrong.
That's really not what I was expecting out of that.
I think that's what it is. And the idea is that everyone's on the same playing field, so you just try to beat a time, I think.
Huh.
So there's
that's kind of neat.
I think that's the new Rift, but like I said, I haven't done them, so I might be misremembering that.
Gotcha. The other game I ended up finishing was The Evil Within.
The first one?
Yes, I
Nice.
finished the first Evil Within. I wrote a bunch of thoughts up on Twitter. I'll probably link that thread. Yeah, that's. It sounds like we're fine. Mine did that about 5 minutes ago as well. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. I found the thread, so I can remind myself of what I wrote.
Cool.
So yeah, I finished that game less than 24 hours after Torchlight 2 because I was on a roll in the new year.
Mm-hmm.
So like beating 2 games to start off the year was a pretty good start, I felt.
Nice.
Ultimately, I ended up really liking that game, even with its kind of like mixed reception. I felt like it did more right than it did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It was tense. It was frustrating a lot. Like, there was some whack boss designs and whack fights in that were particularly troublesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned at one point in the show the Keeper as
it's the guy with the
fight?
safe with the head, right?
Yes. There's a point at which you have to fight 2 of them simultaneously, and they've been really buffed up. So that was interesting, to say the least. It required some unconventional strategies. It was initially frustrating, and then like as soon as I hit that like point where I had the strategy down, that was a point where I felt like just satisfaction, and I felt like, oh yeah, I fucking crushed that.
What was your strategy?
I had my back to the wall. There's like a crossbow weapon that you can customize with a bunch of different bolts.
Okay.
In order to make those, you have to get trap parts, which means I had to occasionally let the bosses lay out a few traps for me, and then trap them in another room while I disarmed them, and they had to go a long, long way to get to me.
Right. So can you trap them by like closing a door, or do you have to like move objects around, or?
There was like a lever that you had to pull, and it would throw up a wall of spikes.
Right.
And then that would trap them on one side of this hallway, and they'd have to go back around through a long hallway to come and get you again.
Yeah.
So it gives you like about a 30-second breather to recoup and regenerate your health and get more trap parts.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It ended up being better about mental health than I thought it was going to be. Like the entire pretext of the game is that, oh, you've gone to a mental hospital and stumbled upon this really horrific scene as soon as you've arrived. And I thought I honestly thought it was going to be a game about like, oh, look at how scary mental illness is, especially with a name like The Evil Within.
Mm.
And it turns out to like be this story about like doctors and brilliant, like, so-called brilliant minds who were caught up in fighting with one another, patients trapped in the middle, and, like, the traumas that these people held. It tells the stories. It tells its story in a lot of weird spaces. There's a lot of the game actively fucking with your sense of reality. It's very cool. I enjoyed that game a lot.
Nice. Are you going to play the second one?
I have started the second one.
Okay.
I don't have any extensive thoughts on that other than the opening minutes of that game are very strong, and the cinematography and lighting in that game is just astonishing. It felt like I wasn't about to play a video game. It felt like I was just straight up watching a film.
Oh.
It was incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to spending more time with that. It's got a really strong title card too. I'll link that. So when you think of a title card, right, you think of like well, it's the thing the shot that shows the title in a film or a video game or anything like that. Within the context of the film or video game, not necessarily
okay.
at the end. But this is what I'm thinking of. Like, I've started the game, I'm a little bit in, and I see this title card. There's a scene prefacing this that makes it a bit stronger than it actually appears here out of context, but even still, this is, like, still pretty good.
Cool.
Now, how about you? I've talked about my couple of games, and we want to make this a shorter episode.
So I haven't played as much as I probably would have at home, but I mentioned on the show before that I have plans to buy a PlayStation 4 because Monster Hunter World is coming out soon. I bought that. I don't have it with me; it's at home. But because my brothers both knew I was getting it, one of them got me Uncharted 4 for Christmas. And the other one brought his PlayStation 4 up with him. So I have played through Uncharted 4, which has been really good. I've mentioned before that when I first touched the Uncharted franchise, I thought there was just going to be an overhyped... Uncharted 1 was just going to be overhyped as like the launch title for PlayStation 3, but I was really impressed with it. And then Uncharted 2 just took it up a whole other notch. And I felt Uncharted 3 was kind of at the same level, but in hindsight maybe a little more muddled. Uncharted 4 is definitely my favourite of the franchise, after having just played through it. Oh, I was so impressed with that game.
It refines, like, a lot of what made those games good.
Yeah, it was more self-aware as well, I think, which was to its benefit. And I don't know how long I spent playing it overall. I'm going to guess somewhere on the order of 10 hours. It might have been 7, it might have been 13. I didn't really keep track. But the whole thing felt like a good challenge, and there were only 2 points where I got frustrated. Which was some in late game gunfights, where frankly, once I looked at the controls and reminded myself how to throw a grenade, I was fine. They throw... I
think that's the way it goes with like most like high level enemy encounters and like this type of game. It's just like, do you remember how to use grenades? Oh, good.
Yeah, I didn't use them through the whole game, but then they throw some people with body armor at you, and grenades are just much more effective than trying to get like 5 headshots on the same enemy while they're shooting a minigun at you.
I've had to learn how to use grenades in PUBG when I'm playing that, because if you don't, like, you're gonna, one, you'll have the grenades thrown at you, and 2, you'll find that using them is the most effective way to just knock people out of position, one way or another. So if they're caught up in a tree, like caught up behind a tree, like grenades are going to be your way to either get rid of the threat entirely, or just to flush them out and force them to move.
Yeah. I think previously what I thought of the Uncharted franchise was that the thing it did best and that it stood out for was its... how to put this? The scenes it had, like the fight on top of a train in Uncharted 2, and like while the plane is crashing in Uncharted 3, all the like big moving scenery. It's very... Oh, crap. What's the word I'm
set
thinking
pieces?
of? Yeah, I guess. They just feel great. But after Uncharted 4, I think, honestly, the thing... It was good at that. But the thing that really stood out for me was just... It handles your allies, there's NPCs, incredibly well. Because there are very few points in this game when you're on your own. You almost always have at least one friend with you. I remember watching my flatmate play through Uncharted 1 last year, and there were points where I think the person you were with could die and you'd lose, and of course that just feels crap because it's like, well, I didn't do that. The game just made me die. There's none of that. There's a lot more stealth now, which is really nice because, yes, you still kill a lot of people, but at least you're not always in a shootout, and if you can stealth kill everyone first, it works really well. You know, they're with you, they will never get spotted or anything like that. They're helpful. The dialogue is actually really nicely natural. There's a section where you're riding around in a jeep and there's three of you, and you're having a conversation, and you know how in games sometimes when there's a conversation going, you'll want to stop because you don't want to like hit a trigger where it'll trigger another conversation and you'll be like, oh, I didn't get the end of that. Well, now, if that happens, but then you come back and you start driving again and someone says, oh, what were you saying? And just pick up where it left off. And it's such a simple thing, but it works really well.
Yeah, Oxenfree does sort of a similar thing.
Yeah?
Yeah, they try to make the dialogue more natural so that if for some reason you interrupt them by like investigating something in the world, they'll then they'll restart that conversation by just saying, "Oh, what was I saying earlier?"
Yeah,
oh, right, that sort of thing.
Such a good thing to do because I hate it when I miss content and stuff. I think Mass Effect has had a few times where I'm like, I'm just going to stop so as not to interrupt this conversation because they don't have that kind of thing. So it's really nice to see.
It's very much a video game thing to do.
Yeah.
To just like force yourself to stop for a little bit and just listen to people talk. Like it's sort of a design issue, I think, that's cropped up as dialogue has become more and more prominent in games. Like, we need to have a system where you can interrupt people and then they'll resume talking about what they were talking about earlier, especially in, like, the context of very narrative-heavy games. Stuff like Uncharted, stuff like even the L.A. Noire. L.A. Noire did this as well, I think, where, like, if you somehow triggered some additional dialogue, people will go back to what they were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just having that more natural flow of conversation, because what would actually happen, right? You end up to a conversation and go, oh wait, no, you weren't finished, what were you saying? It's nice, you can treat the characters like people, rather than thinking, oh yeah, they're video game constructs that act in a weird video gamey way. It's really nice. And they've also just got some really... So I didn't notice like lots of repeated barks from the enemies. They've actually, most encounters while you're sneaking around, there'll be a couple of enemies who'll talk, and it'll be relevant to what's going on. It'll feel right, and like it makes sense for them to do that, and then to stop the conversation. And you don't get a whole lot of repeated stuff. You can like hide from the beginning, but you don't get a whole lot of like must have been the wind from Oblivion and crap like that. There are some comments that were quite weird because it was completely reflecting like what I was thinking. Like there's, I think, somewhere in chapter 5 or something where you're climbing around with someone else and you get to a point where you can't seem to climb. And I'm sort of looking around thinking, where's the next climbing point? And they go and crouch down by the ledge, and I go and check the ledge. And it's like, no, there's nowhere to go from here. And they check the wall, and I'm thinking, well, I was looking at the wall too. And then Nate, who you're playing, says, I can't see anything to climb here. And I'm thinking, yes, okay. So it's not just me. I'm not just looking at the wrong place. And they're really good with that, with just a really subtle in-game way of being like, yeah, no, don't keep looking here. Or like when you've got a puzzle right, the person you're with will say, that must be it, kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool. It's just a nice little confirmation that you're on the right track, or you need to go try something else. That isn't like the game giving you a video game hint or something, you know?
Yeah.
So that's real cool.
Incidental dialogue is a really, really good way of approaching problems like that. I feel like, especially when it came to like puzzles and stuff in Uncharted, like that little incidental feedback, like I don't know, I don't think we've got this right, or like, oh yeah, you're getting it. I think I've figured this out.
Yeah.
Like that sort of feedback is reassuring as like a player. And it's also just nice to it's nice to have that little bit of like prodding in the right direction. Again, especially in a game like Uncharted or Last of Us or anything like that, where the story is the focus, and so we want to get back to the story as fast as possible.
Yeah, and I just feel they've pulled it off particularly well in this game as well.
Sweet.
I also have this funny other thing where I know that is it Nolan North who voices Nathan Drake?
Yes.
Yeah, but honestly, every time I'm not actually listening to the game, I think of one of his lines. I hear it exactly the same, except it's said by Nathan Fillion. Like in my head, Nathan Drake is voiced by Nathan Fillion, and no, it's not. But every time I remember his line, that's the voice I hear it in.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. Alright, I have a question from our inbox this week.
Sweet.
If you'd like to send questions to our inbox, you can do so by emailing us at pausecastshow@gmail.com. And so the question that we have this week comes from Sammy. And Sammy asks, do you have any games that you really feel like you should play, but you've just been putting it off for some reason or another? Pyre and Stardew Valley have been staring at me judgmentally from the corner of my Steam library, waiting for me to finally play them. Sammy. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
Yeah, I can go first. I absolutely do. I have a to-play list in Steam, and I just don't play those games. It's really bad. I've got games in there like Dreamfall Chapters, which I mentioned once before because I played like one evening of it and just have meant to return to it but haven't. I've got Dust and Legend Tale in there. I've got Inside. I've got Life is Strange, which I really mean to play at some point but just haven't yet. I've been meaning for ages to revisit Witcher 3. I just haven't. I have a lot of games that do this to me, and I'm bad at catching up with them. I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna say I'm sure I will at some point, but I mean that's what I've been saying since I bought these things. I'm gonna check when Steam says I bought Life is Strange because I feel like it wasn't recently. Oh no, okay. Oh no, wait, no, that's a year and 6 months ago, not 6 months ago because we're in 2018 now. So yeah, 18 months. It's been sitting in my Steam library. I haven't even pressed the play button. Why not? What's wrong with me? Yes, I absolutely do.
That's a pretty short game. I would recommend playing it.
Maybe I should do it while I'm up here. Although my brother also has the other Uncharted game, Lost Legacy, so that's sort of my next one I want to play through.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I've got a similar kind of organization system to you. Like I've got a set of games in my Steam library that are marked as like now queued.
Right.
And I have a few that are like now playing multiplayer as well. Like the multiplayer stuff I'll jump into whenever. It's just like, I want to play Call of Duty. Which,
it's a lot easier when it's not story stuff, isn't it, to just jump into it?
Yeah, exactly. Like I can just jump back in and kind of know what I'm doing. Rainbow Six, PlayerUnknown's Battleground. That's the sort of game that's all in there. Now playing is like my narrative stuff. Like I've got Hitman. I have Nier Automata, which I'm through to Route B again. I redid the first quote unquote ending. I don't like calling it an ending, but it's technically an ending. The credits roll.
Yeah, it's strange. When you first described them to me as different endings, I thought it was more like a Chrono Trigger thing where it's just you play the game but you do some stuff differently and then it ends differently kind of thing.
No, it ends up being like you play the game and then you load the game on the same file, and it's New Game Plus, but
it's like
also
story B, not ending B, right?
Yeah.
Or like perspective B.
I'm on story B is where I'm at now.
Yeah. So like, yes, they do have different
I've done a few of the I've done a few of the joke endings as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the games that have really been kind of staring at me judgmentally, because I definitely have them, It's been Baldur's Gate and
Oh, yeah?
Pillars of Eternity. Those, like...
Actually, Pillars of Eternity is in my to-play list as well.
Yeah, like, it's the big, meaty RPGs that I just, like, I have not sat down with. And I even have one more to add into that, like, category of stuff now. Because I have two more. I've got both the newest game in Torment, the Torment series, which is Torment Tides of Numenera.
Okay.
And I have the original Planescape Torment, which are going to sit and stare at me judgmentally until I play those games. Oh my god. What am I doing?
I find it particularly hard with narrative games because I can't do more than one at a time, typically.
Yeah.
And I find it hard as well if I'm like really into a book series. I might have an easier time now because I finished the 16th book of 16 of the series that I was reading last year. I finished that now.
Oh wow.
So that was a whole big thing all year, one long story. So I think it's probably going to be easier now for me to look at other narratives, both in books and otherwise, so maybe I'll touch those. I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time in Monster Hunter World when it comes out, though, so, you know,
yeah,
I have to be realistic.
Your, like, big thing coming up. It's not strictly narrative, though, let's be
No,
honest.
it's definitely not, but I'm just going to be spending a lot of time in it.
Yeah.
Is really what it comes down to, so it's not so much that I couldn't play it and another game at the same time, it's just that I don't think I would. Well,
yeah.
Not right at the start. Eventually, yeah, Monster Hunter will stick around while I play other games. Right at the start, for a while, it's probably going to be the only game I play.
Nice. If you want to send us an email with your, like, what's your pile of shame like? Tell us about your pile of shame. Let us know. PauseCastShow@gmail.com. It is a pile of shame. Really
I don't think I'm
is.
going to rename the category in Steam to that, though.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm leaving mine as now queued.
Yeah, to play. It's mine, yeah.
I know what's up. I know it's that's actually my pile of shame.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Alright, I think... Do you have anything else that you want to, add?
That's really been the only interesting gaming thing that I've been up to, I think. I've revisited Monster Hunter Generations just a bit, but that's more just because I'm excited for Worlds, so I want to play some Monster Hunter, but not enough to burn myself out. But no, there's nothing really new there.
Fair enough. I think the only other thing that I have to contribute there is I started speedrunning some stuff.
Oh, yeah? What stuff?
More specifically, there's a few like free running courses that you can do in Call of Duty Black Ops 3.
Okay.
So I've been competing for best times.
This reminds me of was it Titanfall 2?
Yes.
You were doing that?
Yeah, there's like the Pilot's Gauntlet, and
yeah, that's the one.
There's gonna be runs of that somewhere on this site here. So let me see. Yeah, so the pilot's that's the pilot's challenge. That's a different thing. Oh, the Gauntlet. 14 seconds is the current world record.
I think I'd be more impressed if I remembered what it involved.
A lot of free running.
About 14 seconds worth?
Yeah. Well, it's...
Most people
when
take
I first
longer.
ran it, it's about a minute. It's about a minute's worth of challenge there.
Right, because you're shooting things as well, eh?
Yes. Well, each target you miss is a time penalty and stuff.
Right.
Call of Duty, yeah, it's like impediments in the way, like a target that you have to shoot, and then like a target-ass target, not like a vague human.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I started running those, and I've got 2 runs that are in the top 10, including a couple runs that are above the moderators of the game on speedrun.com.
Wow.
So
that sounds significant.
Yeah, I'm happy with these results, but I know that I've got like a lot of movement to fix up and refine, and I've been watching the like top runs to see if I can pick up on some new strategies and stuff like that. It's really fascinating to actually be doing a speedrunning thing. And AGDQ is just around the corner as well. So that should also be really fun.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think that's gonna wrap us this week, I think.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of PauseCast. If you like what you heard and would like to hear more, we have a pretty extensive archive. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by doing a few things. First, if you wouldn't mind sharing the show on social media, on your Twitter, on your Facebook, with your friends, your neighbors, anyone who you think would be interested in listening to conversations about video games. I think they'd enjoy our show, and we'd love for you to share it with them. Another thing you can do to help us in that regard is give us a rating or review on your platform of choice: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you are listening to the podcast. If you can give us a rating or review, it helps. You can also support the show financially if you like by donating to our Patreon. You can find our Patreon at patreon.com/PauseCastShow. Thank you very much to our patrons: Sammy, Residoke, PD, Noah Holmes, Laminated Moth, Mary, Ash Yee, and Allerdrain for their continued support of the show. It means a lot. You can find the show on Twitter at PauseCastShow, and you can email us at pausecastshow@gmail.com. Mark, where can people find you online?
So I'm on Twitter at HonestUniverse, though I haven't really been using it while I'm away. And I write a blog as well, the Not About Video Games, at honestuniverse.com. What about you?
You can find me online at bird.school, and you can find me streaming online at maximumgun.org. And that's almost it. I was just about to say that is it, but it's almost it. Thank you very much to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island, off of Leon's self-titled EP. If you want to find Leon's music, you can go to soundcloud.com/LEYAWN. All right. Until next week, thank you very much, and thank you for your patience with us during this holiday season as well. We haven't had as many episodes up as I would have liked, but we appreciate your patience and support nonetheless. All right, that's going to do it for us this week on PauseCast. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.